the danger of being average in Venezuela. Today we discuss.
Welcome to Venezuela Insider, the only place in Venezuela for expats, digital nomads, entrepreneurs, investors, travelers, and related internationals. For more information, venezuelainsider.com.
Well, I discuss many times this particular platform, a lot of statistics and economics, and that kind of particular analysis regarding the situation of the average Venezuelan, and so on. Now, the issue is that being an average individual in Venezuela is very dangerous. And today, I'm going to explain why. Venezuela is for very courageous people. Regarding, of course, let's go with the safety in Venezuela is way more safe than most people think in the West that, how the situation is actually dangerous. I explained this, that Venezuela, the crime rates have dropped significantly on the past 8 years or so. And you're going to be safe if you come from the West. You are going to be pretty much safe if you stay in a decent area and exercise certain precautions and know what you're doing. You're going to be pretty much fine. However, this is not the particular case regarding economics. With all of this particular economics and demographic analysis that I provided here on the platform, and I mentioned how the average needs are meeting average needs here in the country is very difficult for the average Venezuelan. It has been established, according to certain surveys and analysis, that in order to cover the basic food basket here in the country is around $400, $500 per month per household, and cover the basic basket of goods and services. I'm talking just basic food, transportation, utilities, and that kind of stuff is over $1,000 per household. And if you have a Western living standards, you can double those amounts. Meanwhile, the average income and the median income here in the country is on the neighborhood of $200 per month. So this is very insufficient in order to cover both the basket of just food and the basket of goods and services. That's why for the average Venezuelan, making ends meet in the country is very, very difficult. Also, we have to explain here that quality employment is pretty much non-existent in the country. There is just a fraction of jobs that, let's say 1 or 2%, that pay over $1,000 per month. And afterwards, it's not like we have salaries here of $5,000, $10,000 per month in the country. So getting a good quality job here in the country is next to impossible for the average Venezuelan. In order to make ends meet in the country, first, most of the people that pull that off, that is, let's say 20% of the population, they have assets, they have businesses, they are self-employment, because self-employment here in the country can become lucrative, of course, with not as much stability, but that can go from a white-collar professional like a lawyer or a doctor or a dentist. They actually, the successful ones, of course, they make way over that the minimum requirements, minimum financial requirements in order to make ends meet, and they have actually very good standards of living. However, it's not for everybody, but also people, let's say, blue-collar workers and trade professionals, welders, I'm talking plumbers, construction people, that kind of people, and they also make ends meet, and they enjoy a reasonable standard of living here in the country. However, those are the minority of cases. So here in Venezuela is very, very difficult. I explained this many times. Probably the biggest issue about being in Venezuela is that making money, making ends meet, having a prosperous life from scratch without assets, that kind of stuff, creating wealth is next to impossible. We don't have virtually no access to credit, financing, and also the market is, I have to say, I have to be responsible with this kind of thing. The market is very impoverished. The average Venezuelan citizen has a very low purchasing power. However, it has increased since 2018, let's say, slowly but steady, but still a long way to go. Now, regarding the social welfare here in the country, is not as great as most people think, because we are a socialist nation. I've said this many times, that de facto, Venezuela doesn't have socialism. It has kind of a crony capitalistic system, something of that nature, with some social welfare. Well, first, education, you have public education, but it's not as great. Actually, the public colleges here have some prestigious, some that kind of thing, but the private sector is of course better. But on the good old days, actually graduating from a public college was more prestigious than graduating from a private college, because usually the public college is harder, is more difficult, more demanding. And in particular case, I've been in both sides. My undergrad is from a public college, and my grad school is from actually a very good private university. So I've been in both sectors. I can say the private is way better, and the public sector in the public colleges, the system is very, it's more difficult, more demanding to be a student on those particular systems. Regarding healthcare, in Venezuela, you have both options, the public and the private healthcare. The private here is very good, but it's expensive for the average Venezuelan. And of course, it's not like the United States or something of that nature, but it's not cheap. I mean, public consultation for a typical consultation with a doctor and a specialist is between $50 and $100, something on that range. And also, a surgery can cost several hundreds of dollars, and a couple $1,000, depending on the surgery, of course. But, of course, depends on the case. You can see that it's not U.S. prices that are draconian regarding healthcare, but it's a little bit over the average Latin American standard for private healthcare. And regarding the public healthcare, actually it's better than most people think. It's not great, a lot of bureaucracy and that kind of thing involved, but actually it doesn't work that bad. Usually you just end up paying some typical supplies, medical supplies, in order to get the surgery, and pay a little bit extra, something like that. So a surgery that can cost $2,000 on the private sector, $5,000 on the private sector, it could cost just $100, $200 on the public sector. So you have like a net, you have like a safety net regarding healthcare on the public sector. But of course, if you can afford it, please go with the private sector. The biggest issue regarding being a Venezuelan and average Venezuelan is that within Venezuela, there are a lot of frictions in order to get things done in the country. And usually, you have to pay a premium for those particular frictions, like many people in the Latin Twitter community calls it the Latin hammer. Well, in Venezuela, we have a Latin hammer. And in order to solve all of the issues regarding the Latin hammer, you have to pay a premium for that. And that's the biggest issue about Venezuela, because the frictions in Venezuela compared to a place like Mexico or Brazil or Colombia are a little bit higher. The spread is not as great as most people think, because in Mexico, Colombia, and those places in Latin America, you have a lot of frictions. But in Venezuela, you have it as well. And you have it a little bit, there are worse, a little bit worse, but not as worse. And in most cases, if you pay a premium, depending, of course, the particular friction, the particular Latin hammer, you can solve it. You can solve it but for most Venezuelans, it is very difficult. And lastly, let's discuss about the standards of living overall. Well, in Venezuela, it's very difficult to make ends meet. The country is not cheap, the salaries are terrible, that kind of stuff. However, the good thing is when you reach certain threshold, actually you do have great standards of living in the country. That is, let's say, over $2,500 and $5,000 per month. Afterwards, you can have actually get a great return on investment regarding standards of living. And that's the big issue, of course. Just a tiny fraction of the Venezuelan population, let's say 5% at most, they have access to those great standards of living here in the country. But that is the same reason why many Venezuelans, over 7 million, that's kind of the ballpark number, are living abroad because they are looking for better opportunities. The main drawback regarding migrating, and many of the Venezuelan migrants already know this, is that when you reach abroad, and usually being a migrant, the legality is very difficult. Being a legal migrant, especially in terrible migration systems like the United States, for instance. In Latin America, actually, they have way better migration policies. Very good. This is not going to discuss here today. And having access to the good opportunities on those countries is not as different here in Venezuela. Of course, they have better job opportunities and wealth creation opportunities from scratch if you have nothing. But still, most likely what will end up happening is that when you go abroad, you have to get like 2 jobs or something that usually are very low-end jobs to barely making ends meet yet again. So it's difficult either if you're here in Venezuela or you go abroad to make ends meet and actually have quality of life, decent standards of living. And of course, that's a particular decision for the average Venezuelan. If either they attempt to do so in Venezuela, that's going to be very difficult, not saying otherwise. However, doing it abroad is also going to be very difficult. But here's the thing about trying to accomplish getting great standard of living abroad, is that it depends not only on your very hard work, that's important, of course, but also depends on opportunities that doesn't depend on you. Your success abroad is going to depend on knowing the right particular person that is going to give you the access to the opportunity in order to increase your standards of living. And it's very, very hard being a migrant that comes up. So that's basically the risk that you're taking if you want to increase your standards of living abroad. If you attempt to do so, of course, be my guest, and I wish you the best, regardless of where you are watching this particular content on your particular nationality. However, that's the main issue. You need to be, in order to, right now in this particular society, I'm talking worldwide, where there is a larger divide between the rich and poor and the people who has great standards of living and the people who doesn't have it, is that you have to become a very, very special individual regarding your skill set, your abilities, your network, that kind of stuff. But in Venezuela, we are seeing even worse. It's not like it's excellent on the rest of the world, especially on Western nations, but doing it in Venezuela is very, very difficult. And that's the danger of being average in Venezuela, and I would say in any other place in the world.
Thank you for watching Venezuela Insider. Please like, share, and subscribe. Follow us on social media. If you want to work with us, VenezuelaInsider.com. Thanks again, and have a nice day.